China filled the world with cheap products and paid a very expensive price for it. Let's take a look at how that happened. The more we turn something into something cheap, the more everyone eventually loses. China's story begins exactly at this point. For years from the outside, China was seen as unstoppable. It was like the world's gold mine. Cities that never stopped glowing, factories running day and night, prices falling a little more every year. Western competitors gave up one by one and withdrew, because no one could produce as fast, as large, and as cheaply as China. This was presented to people as a miracle. But every miracle has an unseen consequence. The problem China faces today is that the very force that lifted it to the top has now become a trap around its own feet. Excessive efficiency, excessive production, and finally economic exhaustion began to show themselves. To understand this picture, we need to go back to 1978. Deng Xiaoping said something radical in front of the Chinese Communist Party: "Getting rich is not shameful, it is patriotic." With that sentence, China stepped onto a completely different path. Peasants became entrepreneurs, fields turned into workshops, towns into factories. The state opened its doors to foreign capital. Japan, America, Europe, everyone came. Because the equation was simple: cheap labor, limitless manpower, and a state eager to attract investment. Special economic zones were established, bureaucracy was reduced, ideology was pushed aside, and a single goal was set: produce, export, and grow. Shenzhen became the greatest symbol of this transformation. Once a fishing village, it turned into a metropolis of millions within a few decades. Every city wanted to become the next Shenzhen. Local governments went into debt, built roads, and created industrial zones. To attract factories, land was cheapened, taxes were lowered, wages were suppressed. China grew at a dizzying pace. But a silent problem was settling into the system. Everyone's only goal was to become cheaper. Companies cut profits, lowered quality, and suppressed wages. For local governments, success meant nothing more than producing more. No one thought about sustainability because, in the short term, the machine was running smoothly. For a while, this didn't look like a problem. Millions of people flowed from rural areas into factories. There were long hours and low wages, but it was still better than their previous lives. Meanwhile, the Western world enjoyed the benefits of cheapness. $5 t-shirts, electronics everyone could afford, abundant and inexpensive consumption. Then the system began to overheat. Shopping malls multiplied, steel factories exploded in number. At some point, China began producing far more than the world actually needed. By the mid-2000s, China's steel capacity alone exceeded that of the rest of the world combined. Prices started to fall, but this drop was driven by desperation. When profits evaporated, factories didn't slow down. On the contrary, they produced even more. Maybe volume will save us, they thought. It didn't. That's when a concept frequently used in China came to the forefront: involution, working more and earning less. This was no longer true only for individuals, but for entire industries. Solar panels, electric vehicles, batteries. The stars of the new economy turned into the center of brutal price wars. Hundreds of companies began selling the same products at a loss. No one could stop, because stopping meant being eliminated from the game. As a result, profits collapsed, wages stagnated, and warehouses filled up. In 2024, China's industrial profits fell by more than 20%. Exports were strong, but the money earned from them was steadily shrinking. Producing more and earning less showed the point at which capitalism begins to consume itself. And this situation did not happen entirely by accident. The Chinese state had used this model before. The same strategy was followed in steel, shipbuilding, and rare earth elements. Produce at a loss, flood the market, push rivals out, and then control the game. But this time, the stakes are much higher. These are the industries of the future, the heart of the energy transition. The question is, how long can a country deliberately operate at a loss? When every sector expects state support, competition turns into politics. Efficiency becomes an addiction, and at some point, there is no one left to pay the bill. This is where China's real dilemma lies. The economy doesn't only produce money, it also produces legitimacy. The social contract is simple: if there is growth, there is stability. But when growth only means cheaper products, that contract begins to crack. History has shown this many times. Rome collapsed because of overproduction. Japan drowned in efficiency. Britain crushed its own prices in coal. All of them faced the same question: do you know how to stop? China is now standing at the edge of that question. An empire in production, but lost in balance. And the irony of history is this: the system that filled the world with cheap products eventually makes its own future extremely expensive. Because sometimes the most expensive thing of all is being too cheap. In fact, there are many lessons to be learned from China. History shows us the truth, but we need to understand where to look. Subscribe, and I'll keep showing you where that is.